Welcome back to the show. Kathleen Wynne and her government have had a rough year here in Ontario. From high hydro prices to taking heavy fire over fundraising practices, it's time now to check in with our Ontario Regional Politics Chat. We are joined by Martin Reg-Con. He is a political columnist with the Toronto Star, and he joins us now. This has not been a great year for Kathleen Wynne. Why do you think her government has had such a rough time? I guess pick three of the top headlines that have caused her certainly some indigestion.
Well, there's no shortage of problems that she has that have been plaguing her. The question, hydro prices have been high. She's had political fundraising issues. There have been taints of scandal over emails and by-election charges and the usual concerns. What's interesting is a lot of other politicians across Canada have similar challenges, but are not nearly as down in the polls as she is. It's worth remembering that a few years ago, she was riding high in the polls. She was at about 40% or above that. There was a honeymoon, and as Justin Trudeau was showing us, honeymoons don't last forever, even for him, and certainly not for her. And so just as the high numbers eventually go down, Kathleen Wynne is asking if ever she can return to a higher level of popularity, and she seems stuck right now.
Well, and going forward, hydro is going to continue to be an issue. They've sort of dealt with the fundraising, but there was some discussion just a few weeks ago that people thought she might resign if they lost a by-election. Do you think that her leadership is vulnerable heading into 2017?
That's a really tough question to answer. There's been a lot of talk about whether she might resign. The opposition has been spreading that, and even some caucus members of the Liberal Party are wondering whether it's time for her to move. There have been others who have been asking that question. It's impossible to predict. Certainly on the holidays, Kathleen Wynne will go back and think about what she can do for the party and whether a new leader would actually help the party go forward in the same way that changing from Dalton McGuinty to her gave the party a new look, a reset. So reset, resign, it's impossible to say. The reset isn't working that well, though, and she talked about that in relation to hydro prices a few weeks ago, and has taken, by the way, as the opposition had suggested, the provincial portion of the HST off of hydro. That's a $1 billion gamble. And the problem is the governing party rarely gets credit for that. They tried that a few years ago. They had a clean energy tax benefit. Polling showed that most people weren't even aware of it, or if they were, they didn't think it was something they should be grateful to the government for. So getting that reset is going to be a challenge for her.
And how can she handle this hydro file? Take us through this a little bit. Hydro, of course, has been a problem in Ontario for years, but we've seen all these headlines, particularly in recent weeks leading up to Christmas, that families are making choices between paying for their heat and paying for their food.
Yeah, we hear a lot about heat or eat as a challenge for people, notably in rural Ontario. Personally, I'm a little bit skeptical of that because the Financial Accountability Officer, who is an independent officer of the legislature, has made the case that actually heating costs in Ontario are cheaper than they are in Alberta and a couple of other provinces. Now, people can't believe that. But a lot of these problems are localized in rural areas where transmission costs are very high. And that has been a perennial, and people are focusing it on more because Hydro One, the transmission utility, is in the news. And privatizing Hydro One has also proved very unpopular for the government, far more than the Liberals expected, and has proved to be something of a lifeline for the New Democrats, who are anti-privatization. Even the Tories are anti-privatization on that issue.
Martin, where does this all unfold for Patrick Brown, who's leading the PCs now? He's had to deal with some issues on social conservatism. How has his positioning played out over the last year?
Well, it's really hard to know. First of all, when we talk about Kathleen Wynne's unpopularity in Ontario, Ontario polling is almost unique. It almost takes place in a vacuum because in this province, the biggest province in Canada with the second biggest government in Canada, people actually pay relatively little attention to provincial politics and especially to the opposition leaders. So you have the situation between elections where Andrew Horwath, the NDP leader, is traditionally the most popular and gets the best ratings. This time, Patrick Brown is also getting very high ratings, but most people don't know who he is. So he remains a big unknown, and this is an opportunity for the Liberals to frame him as a socially conservative politician against abortion, which is how he voted when he was a federal backbencher, against an updated sex education curriculum, which is how he made inroads during his leadership campaign, and also the question of gay marriage, which he voted against in Ottawa. Now, Patrick Brown, to his credit, has tried to distance himself from social conservatives, as we call them. The problem is they keep coming back, and the story keeps returning because a 19-year-old teen won a by-election in a safe Tory riding with a lot of help from his church group, and is avowedly anti-abortion and et cetera, et cetera. So he had caucus members the other day who said, just watch us go. Once we win power, we're going to come through for you. So as much as he tries to put it aside, his own caucus keeps bringing it back front and center, and that will be an opportunity for the Liberals to brand him as a social conservative or to suggest that he keeps coming and going on this issue.
Well, Martin, that's all the time we have for Ontario, but thanks so much for giving us that great review of all those key headlines and issues. We'll see you again soon.
Okay, thanks, Mercedes.
When we return, our Friday Press Gallery is here with their picks for the political plays and misplays of 2016. Please stay with us.